you'll know probably very quickly that I have a really strong practice of divination, and I have for about 15 years, which means that I do a lot of tarot. I use the I Ching a lot, which is an ancient Chinese divination system. I've seen all the psychics, all the intuitives, all the aura readers, just anybody. I will see it, I will do it. And in my experience of doing divination, when you ask a question or you inquire of someone, you have to, if you want to be, I would say, like, healthy about it, you come at it from a place of curiosity. So you ask a question, you don't know what's going to come back at you. So maybe you get the answer that you really want, or maybe you get an answer that surprises you, or maybe you love the answer. But there's always a sense that you are reaching into something unknown. You don't know what you're going to get. And it's truly a moment of curiosity, and it's truly a moment where whatever comes back at you, you have to interpret it. So that's one part of my life. And then about, oh my gosh, I think it's like 7 years now, I started writing this biography about the astrologer Linda Goodman. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that project. But what I want to say first is that the way that I approached this project initially was very different than divination. I had an idea of what I thought the argument was that I was going to make. I had an idea of who this lady was, and there was no sense of curiosity or interpretation. So, how many of you have heard of Linda Goodman? What do you know about Linda Goodman?
I'm older than most of the people here, so
Yeah.
that was the first name that I remember associated with astrology.
Oh, exactly.
When I used to read that every day.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. So yeah, perfect example. So Linda Goodman was an astrologer during the 1960s and 70s, and before Linda Goodman, astrology was something sort of obscure. It wasn't really in mainstream American culture. And then her first book, Sun Signs, in 1968, was the first book about astrology to make it onto the New York Times bestsellers list.
You guys not read Sun Signs?
Have you read it?
Yeah.
It's so good. It's a great book. And so then her second book, Love Signs, set the then highest advance ever paid for $2.3 million. So a lot of people will say that she was the person that ushered in astrology into mainstream America. But something else happened to her also during this time. So I don't know maybe if you know this or not, but in 1973, her daughter commits suicide. But Linda refused to believe that her daughter was dead. And instead, she went on this decades-long search looking for her. And along the way, she did all sorts of things. She hired detectives. She went all around the United States looking for her daughter. And she believed at one point in time that the CIA had kidnapped her daughter. She thought that her daughter had 9 doubles. She thought that her daughter was living in a convent in Maine. And so that $2.3 million that she had gotten was basically gone. She drained it looking for her daughter. And so today, when we think about Linda Goodman, she's not typically thought of as this spiritual, astrological visionary. Oftentimes we think of her as this sort of like crazed woman driven mad by grief. And so when I started writing this biography, I'm a huge fan of Linda Goodman. I've loved her since I was like 11. I think her writing is great. And so I wanted to redeem her. I wanted to say, this view we have of her of being this crazed, grief-stricken woman is really misogynistic, and she's actually so interesting, and she's such an important cultural figure when we think about the 1960s and 70s. And so that was my goal, that was my thesis, and I went out to prove it. And so I very quickly saw that I wasn't going to be able to write this biography about this woman. And so the first moment that I realized this, so the first thing I did was I made a list. I was like, okay, I'm going to find, here's all her papers, here's these articles about her, blah, blah, blah. And I realized, she has no papers. She has no letters. She has no relatives that will talk to me. There's just this message board online full of gossip. And so then finally I saw that she had written a newsletter during the 1980s called Star Notes. And I found this guy in Texas who had them. So I write to him and I say, could you send me copies of these notes? I'll pay, I'll give you some money, blah, blah, blah. No, I can't send these to you. And I said, why can't you send these to me? He's like, well, blah. So we went back and forth. He didn't know how to use a scanner. He he had and I was like, you can take a picture with your phone. Don't, easy peasy. He didn't have like he had like a flip phone. So anyway, he was like, but if you come to Texas, I'll show these to you. So I was like, okay. So I was in California at the time, at UC Santa Cruz, doing my PhD, and so I fly to Texas, and we meet at a Chick-fil-A. This man's name is Jerry. So we're at the Chick-fil-A, and I'm taking with my phone. I'm taking pictures of this newsletter. And I had never done an interview before. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was nervous. So I've taken these photos, I've asked him some questions, and Linda B, if she was alive today. I thought that he would say 95, because she apparently died in 1995, she has an obituary, it's in the New York Times, apparently she's dead. So I think this is a legit question. And so Jerry says to me, well, Courtney, you know Linda's not dead. When she was alive, she always told reporters that she was 400 years old. So, by now, she'd probably be close to 500 years old. And you know that she had actually a time twin that died, and that's the body that they, that was put in the ground. Linda's still alive. So I didn't really know what to say. And then I also thought, I could ask him more questions, but then I realized whatever questions I wanted to know, he probably wasn't really going to be able to answer for me, because his vision of reality was really different than mine, or maybe Darby's, or everyone else in the room. So I fly back to California. I read these newsletters. They are cuckoo bananas, and I was in complete despair. I was I don't know how I'm going to do this project. I don't know how I'm going to write a biography about this woman when I don't even know how old she is. No, and then I contacted more people. This is not just Jerry. There's a whole sort of contingency of people who think that she is alive. She wrote a book about immortality. So it's if you ate all the fruit on the plate, you could become immortal. Anyway. So I was panicking. And so then I realized, I was I have to think about this biography project completely differently. I can't go in thinking that I'm going to find this answer. I have to truly encounter Linda in a way where I'm reaching into something uncertain, and I'm asking a question, and I don't know what the response is going to be. And so that whole this whole book has just completely changed my relationship to research and my relationship to writing. And then accordingly, the biography, it doesn't really look like a biography. I mean, when I talk with people about it, I'm it's a biography. It's more like a mess. It's part of it's a memoir, me looking for Linda, and then it's also some speculative scenes of her, which is what I'm going to read here for you. So that's sort of how I got around not having information about her, or her thinking that she's 400 years old, is just to put it in the imaginary, to speculate about Linda. And then also there is some cultural criticism. So I'm going to read just the tiniest bit for you. And then I thought, because this is sort of about divination, it's sort of about the unknown, I brought my tarot cards with me. So I thought maybe we could do a reading. So plant that in your subconscious. See if there's a question you want to ask. No one looks excited about this, but that's okay. Okay, a question will come to you, and at the end we'll have time. Okay, so the section that I'm going to read from, it's early in the book. This whole project was just grasping at possibilities for how to find information about her. And so one of the things I did was I visited her grave, and I visited her former home. And then at one point I went to Sedona, Arizona. How many of you have been to Sedona? What do we know about Sedona?
It's like the crystal capital of the world.
Wealthy and
Yeah.
mystical.
Yeah, it's
also where you get drugs in the desert.
Drugs in the desert. Yeah, there's probably some drugs there.
It's got the vortexes.
It's got the vortexes, so it's the supposed healing energy center, and so it attracts a lot of new age. I was also thinking about how Linda Goodman, in her view of Sally, had this narrative that she was taken. That was her first idea, was that the CIA had kidnapped her and she was gone somewhere. So that's where this reading starts. And Sally is the taken. That's how Linda describes what happens to Sally in the 1979 People magazine article. She says, "I know Sally is not dead. I don't know exactly why she was taken, but I feel the time is right for her to reappear. Yet reports of what police found at the scene contradict any sense of taking." split at the root from the very beginning, as in taking your life versus being taken by someone. Because the reason police went to Sally's apartment in the first place was because, according to Bibi, friends of Sally who had stopped by to visit noticed a peculiar and unpleasant smell emanating from apartment 6B. Because when police opened the door, they found the decomposed body of a young female. So the question that rang throughout the apartment wasn't, where did she go? It was, how did this happen? Because the original police report read, no blood, phone perfectly clean, bed in vertical position. I can't tell you what they found first, nor can I describe the apartment's layout, but I imagine, given this account, the cops examined the walls and saw nothing but flaking paint and oily handprints. I would think that they looked in the bathroom and didn't see a crimson streak across the tile floor. They didn't see the footprints of struggle. They didn't smell a lover's cologne left on the sofa or see heavy footprints in the carpeting. There wasn't a knife or a rope, not that a weapon would have been left behind in the first place. The apartment told him it had never been there. The apartment said, she's been alone for days. The cabinet said, there's nothing in here. Stocking the pantry, I imagine, wasn't what concerned Sally. Something else haunted the woman who lived here. Was there worn carpeting near the window that looked out onto the Alexander Hamilton Bridge? Did she contemplate what it would feel like to jump off the steel beams? Or was she merely looking at the traffic on the street below? I imagine police saw what Bibi describes as an 8-page handwritten note describing Great Depression. They saw the hollow pill bottle, and they saw their verdict unfurl before them: suicide. Call the coroner, call her stepfather, Sam Goodman, call the crematorium. The case is closed. I'm sorry, but Sally is dead. Is that what Sam, Linda's second husband, then estranged though still legally married, told Linda when he called? Did he say he was the one who had identified Sally? He must have, right? That's what Bibi says. Because Linda wasn't in New York when Sally died. She was in Cripple Creek, Colorado, doing the things that spiritual gurus of the 1970s did, like wear prayer beads, start their own religions, and write 1,000-page astrological guides to love and romance. Bibi doesn't speak of this in her account, but I imagine there was some argument when Linda insisted, whether in that conversation or later, that Sally had disappeared. Because in one sense, she had. The old Sally. According to the People article, her royalties from Sun Signs had been withheld when she failed to deliver a second book to her publishers as promised. Furthermore, they describe her at the time as penniless and living on welfare. Yes, she had a book on the New York Times bestsellers list and was hailed as the woman that introduced astrology into mainstream America. Yes, her next astrological book would eventually get an advance of a then record-setting $2.3 million. She was known to buy new cars and jewelry for her friends in Colorado Springs, and I imagine she bought dinner for everybody at the Palace Hotel and Casino every other weekend. And when you walked into her home in Cripple Creek, there was a hot tub out back, a pool in the basement, and a giant golden statue of Osiris in the living room, and a brand new washer-dryer unit humming somewhere on the first floor. An outsider probably wouldn't guess that she'd been thinking about how many pennies were in the jar on her dresser. I get that it's surprising, but it was the rumor, and by all accounts the truth. She was a spender and a gifter. Her accountant, Joe Clowen, knew it. He's quoted in Cynthia Sands's 1995 remembrance of Linda Goodman as saying, "I've seen her empty her pockets to anyone who asks. She's incredibly naive." She'd also promised money to this person or to that person and eventually frittered away all the cash she'd earned before it was even in her pocket. It's what former agent Arthur Klebanoff describes in his book, The Agent. He says, like Zira Mastel and the producers, Linda Goodman had given others percentages of her revenue in the book, totaling well over 100%. Some of the recipients loaned her money, provided lodging, or were helping her on one of her many projects. So when Linda gets the news that Sally had killed herself and knew it just couldn't be true, how else was she going to get to New York but beg for plane fare? I imagine she called her friend Ruth in Colorado Springs. She called Steve McQueen and Allie McGraw, who were friends. There were probably others. This producer she met at that Halloween party back in October, or that actress from the garden party last spring. She must have had a list or peeled through a Rolodex. Or maybe her manager, Aaron Goldblatt, had their contact information. Sam had told Linda that Sally had killed herself. But what did Linda tell her friends and far-flung acquaintances when she spoke with them? How developed were her theories at this point? Did she say that she just wanted to double-check the police reports and see the body in the morgue because she was convinced something else was going on? Did she talk about the Nixon book? Did she talk about the natal chart that she looked at that said it just couldn't be true? Or did she just say, Sam told me Sally's dead and I have to get there to see it for myself? Whatever she said, it worked. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
Where is the end?
Where is the end? Is that like a personal question that has like?
I feel it's more like an existential question, you know,
Okay.
like the end of everything.
Okay, let's ask the question. I can't guarantee that we'll get a great answer, but we can just see what the cards say.
Is the kitty card?
These are the kitty cards.
Is there a tarot card that has a ring on it?
The Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune has a ring. Actually, there's lots of circles in the Rider-Waite tarot deck because they're the pentacles, which are all circles. Okay, tarot. When is the end?
Putting a lot of pressure.
Where is the end?
Where is the end? Where is the end?
Located.
Where is it located? Where is the end?
Donut.
Thank you for asking the question. I appreciate it. You're also enlightening me because usually when I ask questions, they're like deeply desperate personal questions, like tell me what this person thinks, what's going on with this, am I gonna, So I like the existential moment. Where is that? I'm really curious what it's gonna say. Okay, so I'm gonna have you.
Is this like a personal one for him, or is it for the group, you think? Like, where's the end for all of us, or where's just the
I
end?
don't know. Actually, I think we might have to look and see if it's just for Najee or if it's for
We're all really having this moment.
Oh, this is such a sweet card.
Yeah? What is it?
This is the Star, which is a card of hope.
Ooh.
So I actually wonder if the tarot is throwing this back at you and being like, no, don't ask me these questions. You need to be hopeful. You don't need to worry about the end.
Is that what that means?
Yeah, well, it's so I'm going to show you this card. You're going to see it looks very hopeful. This is my cat tarot deck, which is from the
down.
Star.
Oh, that is very hopeful.
Isn't it hopeful?
It's very
Yeah, the Star is like a card of hope. It's like have faith in the future. Have faith in the future. There is no end.
Oh, is that a cat?
It's a cat. It's a cat themed deck.
Oh.
We're all smiling afterwards.
It is an orange cat. It's like a little calico cat. What do you think about that answer? Does that feel disappointing?
It feels a little dismissive, as though it didn't want to really answer my question.
Yeah.
But I understand, it's just one of those things that we may never have the answer to.
Is this question coming from like a really personal place of like tension and disagreements and like friend breakups? No.
No?